So a lot of people who smoke weed like to call themselves a functional stoner. Now, what is a functional stoner? A functional stoner is someone who's able to smoke weed multiple times a day or even every single day and be high while doing certain tasks and actually get them done. So people who call themselves functional stoners, they're pretty much stoners who say that they're able to operate when they're high. They're able to get things done when they're high. They're able to smoke weed constantly and do things like study, get their work done, go to work, I don't know, work on their projects, do this, do that, whatever. They're able to function normally and get things done. But I say that this is complete bullshit. The term functional stoner is it's probably the biggest load of horseshit that I've ever heard in my life. I used to think that I was a functional stoner as well. But the truth is that no one is actually a functional stoner. People just smoke weed to the point where their brain chemistry is so messed up that they need to rely on weed to get those chemicals in their brain that they're lacking because their brain is fried. So when people say that they're a functional stoner, yes, they can function when they smoke weed because they've fried their brain receptors so much that they need to rely on weed to even function in the first place, so they can't function sober. Think about it. A lot of people who say that they're a functional stoner too, their tolerance for weed is so high that they don't even really get high anymore. They do not get high anymore. Like if you guys smoke weed, who are watching this right now, you know what it's like to have a high tolerance. Smoking one joint, like a whole 1 gram joint, that doesn't get you high. It doesn't get you high like what it did back in the day because you built up such a tolerance to it that that stuff doesn't even affect you. So of course you could smoke weed and go ahead and do things because you're not even really high. And this is the exact reason why people need to smoke more and more and more and more because they build up a crazy tolerance to it. But yes, anyways, the reason why this is bullshit is because this is exactly what happens when you smoke weed. You screw up your brain chemistry. You really do. So listen to this. This is what happens when you smoke weed, especially if you're smoking multiple times a day and if you smoke every single day. One, you're screwing up your dopamine receptors. If you don't know what dopamine is the chemical in your brain that's responsible for things like for feeling good. It's responsible for motivation. It's also known as the motivation chemical or known as the feel good chemical. So when you feel dopamine, what's happening is it's your brain's reward system kind of rewarding you for doing a certain task. It even has to do with anticipation as well. So if you feel anticipation towards something like that feel good anticipation chemical or feel good anticipation feeling, then your brain's going to release dopamine. It's kind of like when you're anticipating eating some sort of dinner or some sort of junk food or cake or cheesecake, whatever it is. You feel that anticipation, so your brain releases dopamine, and then when you actually eat it, your brain releases dopamine as well. So what dopamine is, it's the chemical in our brain that's responsible for making us feel good about things that would help with our survival. So back in the day, if you found, I don't know, if you found some wood, if you found some firewood, if you made a fire, if you built a shelter, your brain would release dopamine. Now, in today's society, a lot of things release dopamine, but they release an unnatural amount of dopamine. So things like junk food, porn, video games, those things release crazy amounts of dopamine in our brain. But you know what else releases crazy amount of dopamine in your brain? Weed. Weed releases a crazy amount of dopamine in your brain and it skyrockets it to a level that is not even natural for us to even process. Like our brains aren't designed to process that amount of dopamine in our brain. Now think about this. What do you usually do after you smoke weed? What do? You do more dopamine inducing things. You do more artificially dopamine inducing things. Like after you smoke weed, what are you doing? Like you're watching some explicit content. You're watching some adult videos. You know what I'm saying? You're watching movies. You're watching anime. You're playing video games. You're doing more dopamine inducing things. Now, what happens when you skyrocket your dopamine levels to the point where it's so high that your brain just can't handle it? Your dopamine levels end up dropping down like crazy. And they end up dropping down below its natural baseline. So let's say you smoke weed and then you go up to your dopamine skyrockets to like a level 50. And then after you smoke your weed, you do more dopamine inducing things like you're watching explicit content and watching people get, eradicated from behind. You are playing video games. It ends up going up to, let's say, a 70. What happens after that is it crashes down, it goes below zero, and then it goes to about like a -40, -50. That's why you feel like shit after you smoke weed. This is why you feel that come down. And this is the exact reason why people need to smoke more and more weed after they've already smoked, because they need to get their dopamine levels back to what it would be if they didn't smoke in the first place. They need to get their dopamine levels back higher because it's already below baseline. So you need to smoke more and more and more. But what happens when you smoke more and more and more? It keeps getting lower and lower and lower. It keeps going below that baseline, below that baseline, below that baseline. This is why you need to smoke multiple times a day. This is the exact reason why you need to smoke that much, because your dopamine levels are so low. You're crashing your dopamine levels to the point where you literally can't feel normal. Like if you smoke again, that's the thing that's making you feel normal, because you're giving your brain dopamine. You're giving your brain artificial dopamine. If your brain doesn't have dopamine in it, of course you're going to feel like shit. So think about this. If your brain doesn't have the capacity to even produce dopamine, because that's what's going on here. That's really what's going on here. Because think about this. When you artificially induce any sort of chemical within your body or within your brain stops producing that thing normally. So it's the same exact thing with steroids. If you take steroids, testosterone, and inject that into your ass, your body stops producing testosterone because it's already getting it externally. It already has too much of it externally. So your brain shuts off its production because it says, hey, yo, we're already getting enough here. We don't need any more. Same thing with melatonin. If you take melatonin every single night to go to sleep, your body stops producing it normally. It starts to dull its production because you're getting enough of it. So what happens if you're artificially inducing dopamine within your brain? If you're artificially injecting dopamine into your brain, what do you think is going to happen? Your dopamine receptors are just going to get more dull. They're going to get dull. They're going to get duller and duller to the point where you need to rely on weed. You need to smoke weed to even feel that dopamine rush within your brain. And this is the exact reason why people need to smoke before they do everything. When I was addicted to smoking weed, I was addicted for about a couple years, 3 to 5 years. I needed to smoke before I went to the mall. I needed to smoke before I watched a movie. I needed to smoke before I ate food. I needed to smoke before I did anything, before I went to a family party, before I went to a social event, and went to any function. I had to smoke weed. And the reason why is because when I was sober, my dopamine receptors were all cooked. My brain was fried. So I need to smoke the weed to get my dopamine receptors to the point where I can act normal. I can feel normal. So think about this. When people call themselves a functional stoner, what's actually going on here? What's really going on here? What's really going on here is their brain doesn't have the dopamine, the motivation chemical, the feel-good chemical to do the tasks that they need to do. So they need to smoke weed beforehand to do those tasks, because think about it. If you didn't have dopamine in your brain, the motivation chemical, you're not going to feel motivated to study. You're not going to feel motivated to do work. You're not going to feel motivated to go to work. You're not going to feel motivated to go to that social event. You're not going to feel motivated to talk to people. You're not going to feel motivated to do anything because your brain doesn't have dopamine in it. So you need to smoke weed to get that artificial motivation to do the thing that you need to do. This is the exact reason why people think, and this is the exact reason why people say that smoking weed enhances their skills. This is the reason why people say that smoking weed makes them a better writer. There's a reason why people say that smoking weed makes their studying easier. This is what people think that they study better off of smoking when they're high, which is complete bullshit, because what they're doing is they're smoking so they can get their brains dopamine receptors or dopamine levels to the point where it would be at if they weren't smoking in the first place. Really think about that. Really think about that. If you didn't start smoking in the first place, your dopamine levels would be right here. Let's say at this level right here, normal baseline. But now that you do smoke weed, your dopamine levels are down here, below baseline. So people need to smoke weed to get to the point where their dopamine levels are back at baseline. So if you didn't start smoking weed in the first place, your dopamine levels would be over here. You'd be able to do normal tasks. You'd be able to function normally. You'd be able to go out in public without having to be high. You'd be able to do things without having to be high. So at this point, you're literally not smoking to get high. You're smoking to feel normal. And when you're relying on something to feel normal, that's kind of messed up. Like, really think about it. Imagine if you had to drink alcohol to feel normal. Imagine you had to smoke meth every single morning to feel normal. And it is pretty extreme. Like, a lot of these examples are pretty extreme, but that's literally what's going on here. Let's say you have to drink a bottle of hand sanitizer or put hand sanitizer in your eyes to feel normal every single day. Like, this is literally what's going on here. So people have gone so far down. They've dug themselves into such a deep hole that they can't escape it because their brain chemistry isn't normal anymore. So this is why when people call themselves a functional stoner, I kind of cringe, because of course you're a functional stoner, because the weed is the thing that's literally keeping you afloat. That's the thing that you're kind of hanging on to, is this weed, because you literally wouldn't be able to function without it. Try functioning when you're sober. Try studying when you're sober. You can't. And the reason why you can't is because you're not motivated to do so. I'd even mention the effects on your serotonin levels and your ECS system, your endocannabinoid system. You need to smoke to sleep. You need to smoke to do normal daily tasks. You need to smoke to do the dishes. You need to smoke to cook food. It's kind of messed up. Let me look at my notes here real quick. Now, a lot of people have the excuse, oh, people like Snoop Dogg smoke every single day, and he's fine. He's successful. He's a millionaire. People like Joe Rogan smoke, and he's a millionaire. Look at Wiz Khalifa. He smokes every single day, but he's a millionaire. People like Snoop Dogg, it's their job to smoke weed. They make music, so they can smoke weed and get away with it because that's what they do. It's their brand. They smoke weed, make music. Same thing. Same thing with Wiz Khalifa. They smoke weed, make music. And I'm not gonna lie, like when you smoke weed, yeah, it kind of helps the creative juices flow within your brain. I used to be a producer too. Like I used to make music, be a producer, that sort of stuff. So yes, of course they're gonna smoke weed, and they're able to smoke weed. They're able to smoke weed and get away with it and become successful because that's literally their job. Their job is to smoke weed and make music. It's their brand. Now Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan didn't start smoking weed until he was above the age of 30, when he was already successful. He already had things going on for him. Now the thing is though, Joe Rogan doesn't even smoke weed every single day. He literally says on his podcast, like, yeah, I wouldn't even want to be high every single day. And he's at such a high level of health, wealth, mental capacity, awareness, that he could smoke weed and just quit if he wanted to. He could smoke weed whenever he wants. He's already at such a high level that he's able to do that stuff. He doesn't need to smoke weed to do a podcast. He doesn't need to smoke weed to go to the gym. He doesn't need to smoke weed to do anything. He can smoke whenever he wants and he'll be fine. These are already successful people. You're trying to compare yourself to Snoop Dogg, Joe Rogan, Wiz Khalifa, all those top guys who smoke weed. But you're not them. You're not that guy. You're not them. You are not those people. You're probably in your 20s right now smoking weed, thinking that you're going to become successful and thinking that you could smoke weed and be successful at the same time because there are successful people who already smoke weed. Think about that. When you're in your 20s, you cannot afford to be wasting your time smoking weed every single day, because this is a time when you actually need to get serious. You need to take life serious. It's not that easy out there. There's a lot of competition out there. So what do you think is going to happen when the person who doesn't smoke weed, who has a normal brain, who has normal brain chemistry, has normal mental capacity, he doesn't need to rely on an external substance to even get tasks done? That person's going to outcompete you. But yeah, it kind of just baffles my mind. And it's actually kind of funny because a lot of these stoners, they just don't realize what's actually going on here. They think that weed helps them out, which it does. And the reason why it helps them out is because your brain chemistry is so fried that you need to rely on it to even get your brain chemistry back to normal. So yeah, it does help them out, because if they were to operate sober without weed, they would feel so low. They would feel like shit, to the point where they wouldn't even be able to do normal day-to-day tasks. And trust me, I've seen this time and time and time and time again. Like, I've been a barber for 10 years. So I've met hundreds and hundreds of people. Every stoner, which I was before, knows hundreds and hundreds of stoners. I've seen people quit weed and their efficiency level skyrockets. Literally skyrockets when they stop smoking weed. When they become sober again, their efficiency level skyrockets. When you have normal brain chemistry, because this is the thing that you need to realize. When you smoke weed, your brain chemistry is out of homeostasis. It's not at its natural levels. When you stop smoking weed, your brain chemistry is back to normal. It's at homeostasis. Now, what people will do is they'll smoke weed to try to get their brain chemistry back to homeostasis. So their brain chemistry is kind of like this. It's going up and down and down and up and up and down. It's kind of like a roller coaster. But someone's brain chemistry who is sober, It's like this. It's flat. It's a flat line. So think about it. You're relying on a substance to get your brain chemistry back to normal. Or someone who doesn't rely on the substance at all, their brain chemistry is just back to normal. So yeah, like even the practical things, like you're wasting a bunch of money, you're wasting time, you're risking yourself look stupid in front of people because you smell like weed. Because whenever someone smells like weed, the first thing that people think is like, okay, this person's probably retarded. This person's probably a stoner. He probably doesn't know what he's talking about. Like imagine you're to go to a job interview smelling like weed. Imagine that. You're to go to a job interview smelling like weed. The first thing that person's going to think like, yo, this person's stupid. I'm not going to hire this person. This person's dumb. So you're out here competing with people who don't smoke weed, people who have normal brain chemistry. Of course, the person with normal brain chemistry is going to win. He's going to outcompete you because he doesn't have to rely on this one substance to help them get to normal levels. Now, a lot of people might think, yeah, what's the issue with that? What's the issue with smoking weed and and relying on that to get my brain chemistry back to normal? I've only talked about the brain chemistry part. I didn't even talk about its effects on sleep, its effects on your mood, its effects on your ECS system. You start getting mood swings, you start feeling more anxiety, etc. When you smoke weed, your sleep plummets. It screws up your REM sleep. And what is your REM sleep? It's the most important part of sleep that is the most regenerative for your body. You're not getting proper sleep when you smoke. It's screwing up your ECS system, which is responsible for balance, which is screwing up your balance within your body, the balance system within your body. So you're getting mood swings, different emotional swings, etc., anxiety, whatever, your mood. So if your mood is not stable and your balance system is not stable, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to feel like shit. Now, what's going to happen when you don't have weed? Let's say you run out one day, you run out of weed one day. Or let's say you go to a country. Let's say you go to a country where weed isn't legal and you can't bring weed across the seas. Let's say you're to go to, I don't know, across the country for some sort of job interview or business venture. You're not going to be able to function normally because you don't have the weed there. You're going to be operating at like 50, I'd even say lower than that. You'd be operating at like 30%. Because I know for a fact when I stopped smoking weed, I went from like a 30% to like at least like an 80%. I wouldn't say I operate right now at 100%. I'm not Brian Johnson, but you get what I'm saying. If you stop smoking weed and kind of like stop telling yourself this functional stoner bullshit, you would operate at such a higher level than you're operating at right now. Because you're not getting all the negative side effects from smoking weed, and your brain chemistry is normal. Because people, like what I said before, and I keep saying this because I need to drill this in your head, people smoke weed to get their brain chemistry and their dopamine levels back to what it would be if they didn't smoke in the first place. And when you're at that point, you're not even smoking to smoke weed. You're not even smoking to get high. You're not smoking to enjoy yourself. You're not smoking to get rid of stress. You're smoking to get your dopamine levels and your brain chemistry back to what it would be if you didn't start smoking in the first place. Really think about that. Like a lot of people don't understand this. Like really think about this. So at the end of the day, what's happening is you're an addict. You're literally an addict. It's like a person who drinks coffee every single morning because that's the thing that's keeping them afloat every single day. But people don't realize if you stop drinking coffee, then you're gonna get better sleep, which is gonna equate to more energy in the morning time. Put down in the comments below what you guys think about this, because I'm actually very curious on what people think about this. I want to have some sort of public discussion within the comments, and I want to hear people's opinions. But anyways, guys, write it down in the comments, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more videos like this, and yeah, later.